Hey there, folks, and welcome back to our continuing discussion of Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried. I will be discussing 3 chapters in this particular one, 2 that are back to back, and then one that I think is still related to those 2 that are back to back, but are separated by a couple other chapters. And I'm going to tell you which ones those are. I'll also mention what page they are found in my edition, that is this one right here. Okay, I bring that up because I don't know that all of the editions have the same page numbers or whatnot. But the 3 I'm going to discuss are Stockings, Church, and Style. All right, Stockings and Church are back to back. And I think there are 2 chapters, and then Style is after that. But Style is just like 2 pages. But I think they're all linked by theme in this, okay? And they're linked by theme, but they're also linked by character. The character is Henry Dobbins, and his outlook on things, and the way it seems that the narrator, or Tim O'Brien himself, kind of uses Henry Dobbins as a vehicle to make some philosophical points that I think are significant to understanding where Tim O'Brien is coming from and how he presents his viewpoint. All right, so let's start off with Stockings. Stockings is on page 111 in mine, and I want to read you the very first chapter because it sort of just lays this baseline consideration of Henry Dobbins. It says, Henry Dobbins was a good man, a superb soldier, but sophistication was not his strong suit. The ironies went beyond him. In many ways, he was like America itself, big and strong, full of good intentions, a roll of fat jiggling at his belly, slow of foot, but always plodding along, always there when you needed him, a believer in the virtues of simplicity and directness and hard labor. Like this country, too, Dobbins was drawn toward sentimentality. All right, and I think that's important because what we'll see here are in these chapters that follow is a lot of sentimentality. And when we discuss sentimentality, it's important to note, I believe, that we have, sentimentality is when our heart takes over and we use less of our head. All right, it's that feeling, the gut reactions, the emotions that are attached with something beyond the intellect that it takes to really decipher their meaning in a broader context. All right, and so with Stockings, it's just a couple of pages as well. But what we find is Henry Dobbins keeps the stockings of his girlfriend around his neck as a sort of, essentially, a good luck charm. And the word superstition is mentioned here, and I think that's important because, again, superstitions are things when, this feels like this is helping, but when we actually put our mind to it, we realize that it's actually, things that we would do out of superstition really don't have any bearing on the outcome of anything. All right, but it's just that he keeps these with him, and he sees the stockings, and he sees the stockings as sort of a protector, as if he has these on, then the memory of his girlfriend will live on, and the memory of his girlfriend will live on as something for him to live for and to strive for and to hope for. Okay, so now let's go into church. Now that we've got this baseline of Henry Dobbins, all right, and it's mostly Henry Dobbins speaking with one of my favorite characters, is Kiowa. All right, Kiowa seems very conflicted, because he's a Native American, and he's also very Baptist at the same time, and so he's, and he kind of seems skeptical of the white man, but he's adopted the white man's religion, and so I do like him, though, because he lives within those conflicts and seems to know himself quite well. He seems very at ease within the conflicting religions and heritage that he has. But very early on the first page of this chapter, which is on 113 in my edition, it says, Kiowa says, you don't mess with churches. Because what we have here are the soldiers have set up a sort of base camp in a pagoda, in a temple, where they are doing their operations out of this facility, for lack of better terms. And Henry Dobbins is cleaning his weapons, and he actually hires some monks, or gets some monks to come in and clean his weapons for him, which is such an ironic vision, what we see here of these monks striving for peace, striving for quiet, striving for reflection, and they've been hired by Henry Dobbins to clean his weapons. That just seems like completely out of the ordinary. But, Kiowa says, you don't mess with churches, because that's just something you don't do. That is bad. That's bad mojo. That's bad as far as superstitions go. If you mess with a church, a physical thing, or a temple, he's conflating the two, temple and church together. A place of worship, okay, a religious place, as if it's going to end up badly for us. All right, so we see a little bit of Dobbins's philosophy here. Okay, on 114 towards the middle, he says, Dobbins said to Kiowa one morning after the war. Well, he says, after the war, maybe I'll join up with these guys. Join how? Kiowa said, wear robes, take the pledge. Kiowa thought about it. That's a new one. I didn't know you were all that religious. Well, I'm not, Dobbins said. Beside him, the two monks were working on the M60. He watched them take turns, running oiled swabs through the barrel. I mean, I'm not the churchy type. When I was a little kid way back, I used to sit there on Sunday counting bricks in the wall. Church wasn't for me. But then in high school, I started to think how I'd like to be a minister. Free house, free car, lots of potlucks. Looked like a pretty good life. He goes on, visit sick people, stuff like that. I would have been good at that too. Not the brainy part. Not sermons and all that, but I'd be okay with the people part. He goes on, I couldn't ever be a real minister, because you have to be super sharp. Upstairs, I mean. It takes brains. You have to explain some hard stuff, like why people die, or why God invented pneumonia and all that. He shook his head. I just didn't have the smarts for it. And then there's the religious thing too. All these years, man, I still hate church. All right, so he's admitting, just like the narrator put out there in the previous chapter, the sentimental stuff, the dealing with people, the one-on-ones, the helping people cope with things. He's got that. But when it comes to the academic part of it, writing, reading, critical thinking about philosophical and esoteric, existential types of questions, that's where he's left out in the cold. All right, so that's further that character. Now there's an interesting thing that the monks do here. The monks are depicted often as doing a sort of hand washing thing. Okay, and it's interesting because what we have here are these soldiers, soldiers responsible for killing people. That's what they are out there to do. That's why they have weapons. That's why their purpose is out there to perform those duties. Now, the hand washing motion is interesting because it's kind of like a symbol of purification, a symbol of trying to keep things clean and pure and right. But what they're doing there, the irony of them cleaning this weapon, like you've heard the term, you've got blood on your hands, so the gun certainly puts blood on people's hands for, the killing of other soldiers, enemy soldiers, but, so, and the monks are helping him clean and prep this thing while also doing this, almost like they're conflicted perhaps in the position that they've been put into, all right? And so it ends this chapter. When the two monks finished cleaning the machine gun, Henry Dobbins began reassembling it, wiping off the excess oil, and then he handed each of them a can of peaches and a chocolate bar. "Okay," he said, "Didi Mao, boys, beat it." The monks bowed and moved out of the pagoda into the bright morning light. Henry Dobbins made a washing motion with his hands. "You're right," he said. "All you can do is be nice. Treat them decent, And so we've got this sentimental guy here who is oblivious to the ironies of where he is, what he's doing, what he's saying, his activity, his reason for being there, and a lot of what he's saying. It's like he doesn't catch on to the ironies, which is one of the first ways that he is described in the chapter called Stockings. All right, so we see the kind of the bookends of, Stockings is telling us who Henry Dobbins is, and then the church chapter is actually showing and confirming, yes, this is truly who Henry Dobbins is. Lastly, we've got style. Okay, and style's very short. It's kind of a heartbreaking chapter where an entire family in a village has been killed, and there's one girl who we believe to be part of the family of those who have died, and she is just dancing, and she's dancing outside, and no one really understands the reason for her dance. No one really understands what's going on, and wonder, has she kind of lost her mind? The way she's behaving, given the circumstance, though, it would seem completely, it would seem like a normal thing for someone to have lost her mind in the circumstance. But we have the character Azar, or Azar. I'm not exactly sure how we want to pronounce his name, but he goes into where he's mocking the young girl, and he's dancing in a sort of a caricature of this girl. And Henry Dobbins, our sentimental guy who's more heart than head, he jumps in and takes Azar down a peg and just says, "All right, dance right." Okay, so if you're going to do what this girl did, you need to honor her, okay? They've just laid waste to the village. They just killed the girl's family, but he said, look, she still deserves our respect for everything that she went through, okay? So again, this Henry Dobbins character, all heart, and it's almost like he doesn't really know and hasn't considered where all of these emotions come from, and the thought processes that may lay hidden back there. They don't get his attention. It's that his heart does, okay? And that's something that is very interesting, and we'll see some of that in the civilian population in another video that I'll do next, dealing with the chapters in between church and style. All right, so there's a lot going on here, a lot of characterization, but a lot of characterization goes on to discuss the overall idea of some of what it is that these soldiers are dealing with and the way that they perceive themselves and perceive the war. All right, so thanks for your time. I really do think this is some great stuff here and gives us a broader idea of this complicated picture in Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried. So with that, I will leave you, and happy reading.